Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unnamed Cybersecurity Show.
Hey,
we got our same cast of characters again. We got Bob Mitchie, we got Chris Burns, we got Matt Weaver, and yours truly, Carl DePrado. And Chris, you got a couple things you wanted to talk about today. You were all excited.
Well, you forgot the cat. We gotta call it.
Oh, and the cat. I'm sorry.
Sherman's my local cybersecurity expert.
She is. And she's very stealthy. She fits in. She blends right behind into the furniture. Eh?
There you go.
There you go. Deep cover.
Yeah. All right. So where should we start? Let's start with Henry Schein, shall we? This is a good one.
Sure.
So
yeah. Sounds so friendly with the word "shine" in it.
Well, you think? I mean, it sounds like a friendly person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a friendly person. They had a little snafu.
Who is Henry Schein?
Yeah. What do they do?
What did they do? Well, they didn't really do anything, which might be the problem. Oh, that sounds really mean. So they do. If you go to their website, you can buy medical equipment. Specifically, dental is a big one for them, and it turns out that they admitted that they got hit with ransomware from LV October 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't cover it because, I mean, it happens. They're a $12 billion company. They're a public company. You know, this stuff has been happening. It's kind of hard to keep up with it. But this one is interesting because there was a big turn on this. So they were negotiating with LV, and apparently those negotiations turned south. And while they were recovering, they got hit with ransomware again by LV. Important lesson here.
Yep.
If you hire an IR firm, so an incident response firm, to help you recover from an incident and you're not going to pay a ransom, you might want to make sure before you start restoring that they don't have persistent access into your network.
Just backdoor, the other word for it.
Yeah, a backdoor, persistent access, something, or you may have restored their access by restoring the backup to a backup that included their access. So the point being is, when you get hit with something like this and you're trying to get back up and you hire an incident, I'm assuming they hired an incident response firm. I really hope they did.
Their size, they should have.
Yeah, but clearly the plan didn't work. What I've seen before in this case is they'll hire a couple incident response firms and maybe they just were overstepping each other and then things got missed, whatever. They got re-encrypted. So they sent 2 letters out, one to customers, one to suppliers. And they admitted to it on October 15th. They talked about it. But for the suppliers, they had bank accounts and credit card numbers and other sensitive information that was just straight up stolen. PCI DSS might want to talk to them about why credit card numbers were freely available and bank account information, but that's another story. So some of the suppliers' bank accounts got used. That's a big deal.
Certainly is.
I haven't heard of any lawsuits that are coming out of this yet, but it's been pretty quick. We've seen it with, we've seen it with other ransomware where stuff got leaked, like McLaren Healthcare here in Michigan. They're getting sued. A lot of hospitals in general get sued. MGM, Caesar, all getting sued because they leaked personal information. The point is, if you're going to restore, you have to make sure that they're not in there still, and they didn't do that. But there's other things that are coming out that we keep getting these little crumbs of information. And it's just like, you can look at the risk management of the company. You can just look at it and like, look, they have terrible security program. Like, or they're just choosing to accept a lot of risk and it burned them. So when we look at it from a context, if we put this in context for like businesses that we're going to normally conduct business with, because like none of us are probably going to conduct business with a $12 billion company. I mean, it could, but
billion, not million, 12 billion.
Yeah, 12 billion. Yeah.
12 million. It's a 12 million. It's a little different.
Yeah, nobody's watching this. Let's make it $12 billion. And if you are, hey, shout out to you and hit us up. But
we're looking for a sponsor.
Yeah,
we're looking for a sponsor. If you're here, please, we're happy to work with you. We'll give you a big promotion.
Yeah, I'll even show up to your Christmas party. Anyway,
we don't want them there.
What does anybody know how to get better internet at home? Let me know.
But the point being is like, even we take attacks like this on a $12 billion company. We get these little crumbs of information, stuff like that. How many times in businesses that you guys have you seen it where they were doing, I don't want to say shady, but they were doing stuff that wasn't quite right up to the rules? Like I've seen people store credit cards in plain text. I've told them that that's something they need to probably stop doing, and the risk of it. I've seen people put bank accounts in clear text.
Scary numbers.
We've seen it where they forced people to give them their passwords in their company and store it in a clear text document, thinking that nobody else has access to that.
Name password.
Yeah.
The document's probably named password. Wouldn't
Yeah.
be a surprise.
So when you do stuff like this and you take and you whether you accept the risk or not, if you want to ignore it, that's acceptance. You're putting yourself in a very interesting situation where if somebody gains access to that, they can do great harm to you and your customers. So it's not just about you in these situations. It's about your employees. It's about your customers. It's about your suppliers. It's about anybody that you work with, that you conduct business with. It's all about them too. And if you don't really put that into that perspective, if you're not thinking about stuff like that, like, what are you doing? Really, what are you doing? Like, I know we all want to make money, and there's no shame on that. You make as much money as you can, but you got to do it the right way, and you really have to look at the risk that faces your company and really address them. Don't just ignore them. Don't stick your head in the sand. I mean, you can if you want to. Again, ignoring a risk is accepting a risk. You're still making a decision whether you think you are or not. And these guys made a bad decision. Well, according to their emails, they've made a bunch of bad decisions. But
going back to what you said, Chris, I wanted to throw this question either Matt or Bob on your thoughts. I was reading about the lawsuits that came out for Caesars and MGM, and they mentioned in there, a couple of points, and one of them was that the officers of the company have enjoyed profits by not investing in the proper cybersecurity data to basically take care of the fiduciary responsibility that's required when you're holding this data. I mean, when you talk about Shine, they had 35 terabytes that was taken from Alpha. Alpha was the same group that hit MGM and Caesars. They took 6 terabytes there of data, again in clear text. So either one, I want to throw it to either Bob or Matt here and give us thoughts about the irresponsible. I mean, it is irresponsible, going back to Chris's point, but the point that the law is starting to make, the attorneys are starting to make, is, hey, if you're not investing, you are negligent.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's we all know corporations are their own entity. But the fact of the matter is, when you're on a board and you're making decisions for profitability, you're also responsible for the risk to your customers and your clients. And frankly, no one is perfectly protected. So what it comes down to is you really need to do the right thing and protect your customers. I mean, that's the simplest way of putting it without getting into the technical mumbo jumbo and pretending I'm a lawyer. But no one is, above the law, and the law is beginning to make it very, very clear that when you cut corners to make more money, and it's putting your customers at risk, that's just not acceptable any longer.
Can I tag on to that?
On that same note, Matt, there's businesses out there that, it's always, a lot of these attacks have all been in the supply chain. What applications are out there, and from a due diligence perspective, do you really think the corporate board is going to be able to review the security of every application that's in the supply chain? No, but you really do need to look at what data is being stored, because I have looked at databases for applications that we're running out there just to peruse them as part of an assessment, and I've come across social security numbers and credit cards just sitting in there in a donor database. So
have you ever run an assessment and not come across what we'll just say was a surprise? Every time, right?
Every time.
And that's why somebody needs to be doing that.
And part of all those assessments, the bad guys get in with a phishing email. We can get a phishing email through, not a problem.
Yep.
Well, and to tag off of what Bob and Matt said, if you're a public company or if you have investors in your company, you have a responsibility to those investors.
Sure.
It's not just your customers. It's not just your responsibility to those investors. So, you see a big push to get more cybersecurity experience on the board. I don't think it's there yet. I think the SEC rules might help with that because they're putting that, but there's a group of people that are trying to even push those rules back because they say it's going to do undue harm to companies. And it's like, come on.
You know, it's so funny going back to what you're saying, Chris. When the MGM and with Caesars, they both had audits about, I think, 18 months prior to this. And they both got Fs on cybersecurity because it was clearly demonstrated that neither company had proper access, had proper talent there. It was there that could have helped them with this.
What's more surprising, that an audit actually came back with an F or that an audit actually found something?
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying, one of the things that we tie into this, I'm going to pop back in because even though we're talking about Shine, who does medical supplies, doing Caesars, one of the things that can kind of unify this, because it's been touching everything, and with Alpha, is the Okta breach. And you were mentioning a couple of things about what's been happening with that. I thought that was interesting. We should bring that to light. Okta.
Yeah.
I had another. It's the New York. It's the New York way of saying Okta. Anyway.
Well, the new news on the new news in Okta is initially they said that only 1% of their customers were affected by their support system breach, and then 2 days ago they come out, or yesterday or whatever, and they come out and they say, well, actually, it was all of our customers. Excuse me?
100%.
Yeah. So 96% were just name and email. The problem with that isn't necessarily that their name and email got leaked. Now you have information on somebody. So you have name, email, and they use Okta. So spear phishing, which would be a targeting phishing campaign against these people, is going to be really easy. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Okta.
Yeah. Okta.
Oh man.
You can't spell it. So anyway.
And on top of that, they finally did talk about the whole support system aspect of it and why it didn't have MFA. Again, this account did not have multi-factor authentication. They said because it's a service account that it couldn't have MFA, which is an argument. It is an argument. But there's the other risk to that is if you don't put compensating controls, so you don't put limits on like IP addresses or where it can be run from, and stuff like that. You didn't look at all the risk involved, and you didn't make it, and you just chose to accept it the way it was. And now you come out and you say, well, we can't because it's a service. No, there's other controls that you could put in place so that it couldn't be used, but you didn't do that. So spare me the ignorance excuse, spares all that. Just admit that you screwed up and that you're gonna fix it. LastPass screwed up big time. At least in LastPass's response, they talked about the steps they were taking to make things better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, so that's all we want to see. Like,
exactly.
All of us are gonna make mistakes. We understand that. Like every one of us is gonna make mistakes. Every one of our customers are gonna have something going on that we didn't have a control for, or they didn't have a control. Look, get that. It happens. It's business. Nobody's perfect.
That's all part of going through the process. I mean, it's never if, it's when it's going to happen. But nobody here is going to be able to give 100% guarantee that you're never going to get breached.
Yeah.
It's basically figuring out how to mitigate it.
Learn from it. Learn from failures, right? So you had a security failure, learn from it. So what do you have to do? Well, you got to make sure that can't happen again. That's really the thing here is like identify the risks of your business as many as you can. You're going to miss stuff, right? And something's going to happen and you're going to identify a different risk and you're going to have to just you're going to have to choose what you want to do with that risk, right? Can you mitigate it?
Yeah. And the thing is you may have the risk, but like you were saying, Chris, you got to be able to mitigate the risk and be able to limit what that can be.
Unless the mitigation costs more than the risk itself, then you can accept it. But you have to document that you're accepting it.
Yeah. And you're looking at exposure versus the risk. And, you don't put $100 lock on a $10 item.
I mean, you can.
You can, but it's not good business sense.
Not normally.
Yeah, but it's usually worth more than $10. It's going to cost more.
But so let's spin this back a little bit. So the Okta thing, right? So everybody in their support system got their email at least their email and their name leaked, right? So now they can be targets because they know they use Okta to hear the people. I think what was really funny about that, and not funny in a, this is not funny in a haha way, but more than 1,000 of those accounts that were Okta administrators had no multi-factor authentication apparently on those accounts.
Wow.
So now if they do get phished, and they didn't name which ones, obviously, if they get phished and their password gets leaked, guess what? They're going to get access to their Okta, which is all their identity management. So we still live in a time when people think that it's okay to have an administrative account to your identity and access management platform, not have a second layer of authentication. We still live in that.
If I were Okta, I would be enforcing that as of yesterday. You know, or at least after the end of this recording.
There's this push for secure by design, and I get it, but like also there's just common sense.
Yep.
Right. That we all have to live by, and it's like, are you going to live in a? Let's say you buy a house in an area that's a high crime area. Are you just going to leave your doors open and windows open? Are you going to leave your car unlocked and leave your laptop and all your valuables sitting inside of it? I mean, that's what people. This equates to what people are doing.
Yeah, but of course they don't see it, so they don't value it.
Yeah, and then they complain when the stuff gets stolen. So anyway, that was the 1,000 accounts really irked me a little bit. I was like, that's ridiculous.
Bob, you've been a little quiet. You have any thoughts?
Yeah, I've been a little quiet. My internet dropped on this call, and supply chain issues are a big risk for everybody, and that's what we got going on these days. And like Chris said, people think that MFA is still optional, and it's not anymore. So when you hop off this call, go turn on MFA. Make sure it's on. Make sure your employees have it on. But
I have other analogies, but I'm not allowed to say them in public.
Matt, I wanted to give you a moment here. Do you have any thoughts here?
No, I wouldn't just say turn on MFA, but require it of your employees. Don't just fix this for you, fix it for your company. Weakest link is where the data is going to go, and that's not a good time. And honestly, we're talking about all these big breaches and big incidents. It happens to small companies, but you don't have to be 12 billion. You can be 12 million. You can be 12,000. Those just don't make the news as much, but they happen every day. That's
Absolutely. So,
I mean, with that, Carl, we're at 17 minutes here. I think we all need to get back to work and go from there.
See you guys next week. Be safe out there.
We should do a 4-hour marathon one of these, because then I don't have to go back to work.
I don't know if I can handle Chris's brain for 4 hours.
Hey, we should.
All I know right now is Chris offered an incentive to a $12 billion company that he would go to their Christmas party if they sponsored us. And I'm thinking that, the opposite is true, that if we'll promise that Chris won't go to your Christmas party if you sponsor us.
I'll leave you on this. If we can raise money for some sort of charity, I'll sit here and do an 8-hour podcast. I'll do this for 8 hours. If somebody out there wants us to help raise money, and all we gotta do is talk about this stuff for 8 hours, I'm in. Right. It doesn't, as long as it's a decent charity and you give most of your money back to what your charity is for, I'm in. So just let us know.
Bring it on.
All right.
Right. Good thing. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right, see you next week.
Bye, everybody.